episode 319, we define density as the amount of work performed in a given unit of time, the relationship between effort and clock, the signal that says, you do not get as long to recover. Get better at recovering. That definition is useful, but definitions do not prevent the most common failure mode of density, compressing everything at once, watching the quality of the work degrade, and concluding that density training is not for you. Today, we address the how, intelligent density application. We'll be tightening one variable at a time and be disciplined to stop tightening before having gone too far. I call this micro-density, the smallest compression that still triggers adaptation. Hey there, it's me, Core, and you're listening to Exercising Consistency, from fitness to flourishing. First, let's clear up what we're striving to avoid. Intelligent density is not maximal compression. It's not the program with the shortest rest periods, the longest circuits, the most frantic pace. That approach produces one adaptation: the ability to do low-quality work while suffering. That is not density. That's just working hard and hoping for the best. It's not ignoring the clock and going by feel. Rest periods that are allowed to drift or go untracked. 2 minutes becomes 3 because you checked your phone or you got lost in thought. These are not rest. They're leakage. The session extends without more work being done. The density of the session drops without anyone deciding to drop it. That is not training. That is occupying gym space. Density is also not a substitute for intensity or volume. You cannot compress trivial work and expect the compression to produce meaningful adaptation. Density amplifies what is present. If the work does not demand enough to signal change, tightening the rest periods only gets you to the end of a bad session faster. You're not just aiming to finish faster for the sake of speed. You're training your capacity for recovery. The question you're asking is, how much can I tighten the recovery while maintaining the output? Density is seductive. It promises a shorter session, a harder session, a more efficient session, all at once. The promise is real. The cost of chasing all of it simultaneously is also real. When you compress everything at once, 3 things happen. 1, you get technique degradation. This is density's unique failure mode. Intensity failure is acute. The weight does not move. Volume failure is cumulative. Fatigue builds across sessions. Density failure is qualitative. The weight moves, but it moves differently. The squat depth shortens. The brace softens. The tempo accelerates where it should be controlled. The set is completed, but the set that was completed is not the set that was prescribed. The degradation is invisible to the clock. The stopwatch does not care whether your squat hit depth. It only cares that the interval ended and the next interval began. This is why density training without attention to quality is not training. It's just exercise. The signal is corrupted. Don't aim for reps. Aim for good reps. 2, you get output collapse. When recovery is compressed too aggressively, the later sets in a session cannot match the earlier sets. The first set of bench press moves cleanly. The third set, performed with 60 seconds of rest instead of 2 minutes, moves with a grind that was not present before. The reps are completed, but the force applied to each rep is lower. You're no longer training the movement parameters you want. You are surviving at whatever parameters the compressed recovery allows. Over time, this produces a specific kind of stagnation. You believe you're training hard because the session feels hard. But the output that the session was designed to produce, the load, the reps, the quality, is not being produced. You are getting better at suffering. You are not getting better at the skill of the movement. 3, you get rhythm without adaptation. Density is supposed to produce work capacity, the ability to repeat meaningful efforts with less recovery. But when recovery is compressed past the point where the efforts remain meaningful, the adaptation does not occur. The session becomes a test of tolerance rather than a stimulus for change. You are not building capacity. You are proving you can endure. Those are different things. The common thread here is that density is being treated as a stressor, make it harder, rather than a signal. The signal was sent when the rest period was reduced enough to challenge recovery without compromising output. The additional compression, the one that broke technique, was not a signal. It was an error of application. The intelligent application of density follows the same logic as microintensity and adding 1 for volume. Add the smallest unit that still produces adaptation. Here are some examples of what that looks like. 15 seconds less. This is the microdose of density. If you currently rest 60 seconds between sets, rest 45 seconds for 1 session a week. The reduction is almost imperceptible in the moment. The body will register the difference. 15 seconds across 5 rest periods is 75 seconds removed from the session. The work is identical. The demand on the recovery systems is slightly higher. That slight increase, sustained across weeks, produces adaptation without the technique degradation, output collapse, or rhythm without adaptation that a too aggressive compression produces. 1 superset pair. Instead of compressing rest across the entire session, compress 1 pair of exercises. Perform your bench press. Then, instead of resting, perform your bent over rows immediately. Then rest. Then repeat. The rest of the session continues as normal. 1 single superset introduced into an otherwise unchanged session is a density signal. It does not need to be everywhere at once, but put it somewhere. 10 seconds less between exercises, not between sets of the same exercise, between different exercises, the transition time, the gap where you walk to the next station, set up the next movement, check your phone. Compress that gap by 10 seconds per transition. Across a session with 6 exercises, you remove a minute of non-work without touching the rest periods between exercises. The principle across all of these is tighten 1 variable. Leave the rest alone. Wait for the adaptation. Then consider tightening again. There's a lesson that comes with this principle, and it can be tough to learn. The willingness to stop compressing when the work degrades. This is why the discipline of density is not the discipline of tolerating more discomfort. It's the discipline of the quality gate, a standard below which the set is not counted, regardless of what the clock says. The quality gate is defined before the compression begins. For example, these squats will hit depth, or these reps will maintain tempo, or this circuit will be completed with the prescribed exercises in the prescribed order without substitution. If the compression causes any of these standards to fail, the compression stops immediately. The clock is the variable being tested. The standard is not. This is the discipline in its most technical form. A return to the standard and the honesty to admit when the manipulation of the clock has compromised it. The body is an honest teacher, but it needs help. The clock cannot tell you whether the squat hit depth. Only you can. And the version of you that is tired, breathing hard, and wanting the session to be over is not a reliable judge. This is why the quality gate must be defined before the compression begins. When you are fresh, objective, and not yet invested in the session, being impressive. The objection to these tactics is the same one micro-intensity and adding one for volume faced. 15 seconds is almost nothing. One superset pair is almost nothing. How can almost nothing produce adaptation? The answer is the same. The single session is negligible. The compounding across time is not. 15 seconds removed from rest periods, sustained for 8 weeks, is not 15 seconds. It's the accumulation of a slightly higher recovery demand across dozens of sessions. The body does not respond to the 15 seconds. It responds to the pattern. The pattern says, recovery windows are shrinking. Adapt. The adaptation is work capacity. The ability to do the same quality work with less recovery between efforts. This is not a dramatic adaptation. You will not look different in the mirror, but you will notice it in the sessions. The rest period that used to feel necessary will start to feel generous. The set that used to require full recovery will be approachable at partial recovery. The work will not feel easier. It will feel the same, but you will be doing it with less rest. That is what density adaptation looks like. Micro-density works for the same reason micro-intensity works. The signal only needs to be loud enough to be heard. Density is now in two places, the definition and the calibration. What remains is the recognition that density, like the other signals, is not confined to the gym. In the next episode, we look at density everywhere. How the signal of tightening the window appears in work, in attention, in the rhythm of a day. The ability to return to effort quickly without loss of quality is not just for the gym. It is a life concept. Until then, the next time you train, look at one rest period, the one that feels generous. Remove 15 seconds. Notice whether the next set moves the same. That's the practice. Not compression for its own sake. For experimentation, inquiry, and discovery. To exercise consistency and become the person who uses these signals to train follow-through, join the ACT Score Challenge. That's it for today. Catch you next time.